sun's in my eyes.
The wind is your back.
The wind's at my back. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
No, we'll stop that. We'll start. Okay. The sun is in my eyes. I want to welcome everyone, the people who are here, the people who are online, the people who are still eating at the back. Is everyone here? Okay. We will begin with the Birkat Hamazon. I'm joking, please. The main thing is stay serious. There was a story I told a while ago. First of all, how many of you have heard me tell jokes before? I see it. Okay. Do you know the one about the pharmacy? Pharmacist, have you heard it before? No? That's excellent. This pharmacist comes to work and he sees in front of him the manager, but leaning against the wall is a man. And he says to the manager, "What's he doing here?" And he says, "Well, he came in complaining about a cough. He was coughing. And we're all out of cough syrup and cough medicine. So I gave him a large bottle of X-Lax." Mine. You can't use X-Lax for coughing. He said, "Oh no, look at him. He doesn't dare cough." Very disgusting. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. You know, when you call, you get this recording saying your call is very important to us. Please enjoy this 40-minute flute solo. You must have heard it. Yes, more. We had this. Remember, I'm dependent on you. It's that way around. We had a lady in the synagogue whose name I forbear to mention, who some of you know who I'm referring to, who was a great believer in animal rights. Please don't mention names. Human rights I'm not so sure about, but animal rights. And she asked me to visit her, and I did. It was a big mistake. It was a very, very cold day. It was a freezing day, you know the story. Laugh anyway. It was a freezing day. And I came to her house and I was wearing one of my fur hats. She took one look at me and she didn't say hello, didn't say thank you for coming. She said, "You're wearing fur." And I said, "It's cold." And she said, "So because you're cold, an animal has to be killed." I said, "It wasn't killed. It died a natural death." She said, "How do you know?" I said, "I conducted the funeral." You know, there was a policeman, something not so Jewish. I mean, that's Jewish because it involved two Jewish people, that lady and myself. I forgot what I was going to tell you. What was I going to tell you? The policeman? Yes, thank you, a policeman. Thank you very much. Who said policeman? Come up, you'll continue. No, I'm so absent-minded. Thank you. So, yeah, I rejoice. Heckling is a spice of life for me. So this policeman arrests someone and interrogates him for several hours. And then he goes out to his boss, and his boss said, "Did he confess?" And he said, "No." He says, "What? Didn't you tell him? Didn't you say to him, the way we trained you, you're wrong, you know you're wrong, you know what you did was wrong, everyone knows what you did was wrong. Didn't you do that?" He said, "Yes, I did." He said, "Well, what did he say?" He said it was very strange. He said, he kept on saying, "Yes, dear." "Yes, dear. Yes, dear." And eventually he fell asleep. You know, keep going. Somebody a call. He makes a call to someone, and he hears his voice saying, "Wrong number." And he says, "Are you sure?" at the other end says, have I ever lied to you? Well, that's it. No, I use the best ones first. Yes. Your sermon, someone once said, not to me. He came up to him after, it was a Friday night service, he said, your sermon, it was absolutely superfluous. And the rabbi said, well, thank you very much. I'm having a collection published posthumously. And the convent said, oh, Rabbi, I can't wait. This is going to be disgusting. We're in the synagogue. Can I tell the one about? I'm getting permission. You know Horowitz. Have you watched Vladimir Horowitz? Some of these concerts. He always look. His wife would be sitting there. You always look at her first. We had a rabbi in London actually who always used to look in the Orthodox synagogue. The women's gallery was up. The women sat upstairs, and before he started, we'd always look at his wife. And so the talk was that his wife wrote the sermon. It was totally untrue. He was just asking for permission to speak. Anyway, this man, forgive me for this one. This happened in New York, on a side street off Broadway in Manhattan. An elderly lady, an elderly Jewish lady was walking, that's the Jewish connection. And a man came up to her, was wearing a raincoat, and when he came up to her, he flashed, he pulled the raincoat open, and there was nothing, well, not nothing, there were no clothes underneath. She looked at him in total disgust, and she said, this you call a lining? Yes, well, I mean, some of these are ancient. I've tried to get the newer ones in first. Yes. I'm having all these faintly off colour ones. Oh yes, there was an elderly lady, a nice Jewish lady, who asked to have her portrait painted. And she said, listen, I want you should paint me with diamond earrings, diamond necklace, emerald bracelets, ruby brooch, and a gold Rolex. And the artist says, but you're not wearing any of those things. You're not wearing them. She says, I know. But if I die before my husband, I know he'll remarry and let the new wife plutz looking for the jewel. This didn't happen to me, it happened to someone I know. He sat down in a public toilet and he heard a voice from the next stall. Hi, how are you? And he said, well, I'm doing fine. Good. So what are you up to? She said, well, I'm just sitting here, I'm just minding my own business. He said, well, can I come over? He said, I'm rather busy right now. And he hears the guy say, listen, I'll have to call you back. There's an idiot in the next stall answering all my questions. This defendant was found guilty. The judge was just about to sentence him and he said, wait a minute. Haven't I seen you before? Haven't I seen your face before? He said, you have, Your Honor. I gave your son violin lessons last winter. He said, ah, yes, 20 years. Never mind. Thank you, just spread this around. You know about this elderly couple who makes aliyah, they go to Israel, you know what's happening in Israel, alas. But anyway, the alarm goes off, they're safe because they run, the air raid alarm runs, and they're running to the shelter, and she turns back. And he says, where are you going? She says, I left my teeth in the glass. He says, Becky, they're throwing bombs, not sandwiches.
That was cute.
You know, oh, I'm glad to hear that. As opposed to all the others, yes. Well, thank you, Susie. We had a politician in Chicago, not alive anymore. Some of you remember him. All of you remember him, Abner Mikva. Remember Abner Mikva? Well, I hadn't heard of him. I came to the United States, and there was an election. There was an election going on. And as I passed a certain building, I saw a sign, a big sign that said Mikva. We know what a mikveh means. But then I saw the next building that also said mikveh. And I saw the next building. Every single house in the street said mikveh. I said, my God, this is the most religious place I've ever seen in my life. Mikveh is a ritual bath. I said, how many Orthodox women are there in Chicago? What are they all up to? Then I saw a woman driving a car which had a mikveh sign on it. God, this is unbelievable. And it was Shabbos. It was actually Shabbos, and she's driving a car that says mikveh. What's she doing? She takes a quick dip before she goes to shul. What kind of a shul is this? How do I get there? Then I saw a woman with a T-shirt with huge letters saying mikveh. So I give up. But someone did actually ask him. I know someone on the south side asked him, he said, do you know what your name means? And he said, yes, I stand for clean government. Yes. Right. Yes. This poor guy, he says, whichever woman I go out with, doesn't matter who it is, my mother doesn't like it. What am I going to do? So I'll tell you what you do. Find a woman who looks just like your mother. Same face, same figure, same disposition, same company. Later, I meet him and I say, well, did you do that? He said, yes. I said, well, he said, my father doesn't like her. Yes. Well, I have another one which, see, I'm convinced that everything, whenever I look at what I've written down, I'm always convinced that every one of you has heard it before, but there'll be some who haven't, and they can encourage those who have to laugh nonetheless. Well, there's one, for example, this is a true story. This is one of the only things I'm going to tell you that's true. Many years ago, I met someone who, and I asked him where he was from. He had an accent, a Jewish man, and he said, I'm from a town in what's now Czechoslovakia. Oh, well, now it's the Czech Republic. And I said, well, what's the name of the town? He said, you won't have heard of it. And I said, well, try me. And he said, it's called Teplitz. That's a German name. I said, it's right near a place called Turn, T-U-R-N. And he said, how did you know? I said, there was a man who used to come to our synagogue, and once he left his siddur, his prayer book there, and it had a name and address stamp from before the war, and I don't know the street names, but at the bottom it said Turn-Teplitz. He said, what's his name? We may be related. And I said, you don't want to be related. He said, why? I said, he's a real mumser. He said, that's the one. That is a true story. We will now resume the falsehoods. There's a cemetery in London. I'm bound to get onto cemeteries at one point or another. There's a cemetery in London, which is, I've never been there. It's closed. When I say it's closed, I mean it's, there are people buried there, but there's no room for anyone more, but people do go there to visit. In fact, this friend of mine told me about it. I hadn't even heard of it. I looked it up online. He used to go with his mother. A lot of the people buried there in that cemetery died in the flu epidemic of 1917 or whatever it was. And his mother's mother had died in that epidemic. He said, when you come into the cemetery, he said, this is absolutely true. So maybe I'm telling you more truths than I know. When you come in, the first thing you see is a row. It's a building with a row of toilets. There's a bunch of toilets in there, and a big sign saying, for visitors only. Just think about that. Just think, what can they be afraid of? Well, there's a man I heard about in Florida. We're about to get to Florida as well. We took cemeteries, now we're going to Florida. Close. He says, I've sure gotten old. I've had 2 bypass surgeries, a hip replacement, new knees. I fought prostate cancer and diabetes. I'm half blind. I can't hear anything quieter than a jet engine. I take 40 different medications that make me dizzy, winded, and subject to blackouts. I have bouts of dementia. I have poor circulation. I can hardly feel my hands and feet anymore. I can't remember if I'm 95 or 110. I've lost all my friends, but thank God, one thing I still have, my driver's license. Yes. It's even his interpretation. This is a short one, and I think it'll get a very short laugh. Eve said to Adam, "What do you mean the children don't look like you?" Yes. There was a story I heard years ago, one of these stories, we like to ridicule. Ridicule is a very, very important weapon. If some people are around who are horrible, remember that. Ridicule, rather than straight attack, just ridicule. So the story was that Hitler and Goering says to Hitler, this is when there were still Jewish people in Germany before the Holocaust had really started, the bad things were already happening. He said, you have to admit that the Jews are better businessmen than the Germans. He says, it's not true. He said, I'll show you. They went into a store that sold crockery, and Goering says to the man, we'd like to buy a left-handed teacup. And that's, I'm sorry, I never heard of such a thing, we don't have it. He says, Goering says to Hitler, let's go to a Jewish store now. They go to a Jewish store and he says, we'd like to have a left-handed teacup. And the man thinks, he turns around, he pulls down the teacup, he puts it in front of them with the handle on the left side. Then he said, well, look, I have this one, but it happens to be one of the few that's left in Germany. It'll cost you 1,500 marks. And Goebbels says, we'll let you know. He goes out and he says to Hitler, you see, what did I tell you? He said, what's so clever about that? He just happened to have one in stock. Yes. This is a very sad conversation. Oh, I learned, when you fill out these forms, it says marital status. You know what someone put down? Not speaking. And in the same vein, I have to be very careful with these. The conversation. You said you'd try and make me happy as long as you live. He said, I didn't think I'd live this long. Sorry, I better get off this. Yes. Oh, this one, yes. This I actually used at someone's wedding. I'll explain why how in a minute. I think he's listening online, he'll be listening to the recording. There's this fellow who's retired, Jewish man, and he's miserable, he's depressed, he's bored, and his friends try to get him some job, something to lift his spirits, but it's impossible. He takes a job and he leaves within 3 days. It's terrible. And then one of them has an idea. They hear about a job and they say to him, listen, there's a position opened at the Art Institute on Michigan Avenue, and you'll get a uniform and you'll just direct people. When they don't know where to go, you'll tell them, the Chagall window's over here and so on. So he says, well, I'll try, I don't know. He's always down in the math. And they say, after a week, they come back and they say, let's see how he's doing, if he's still there. They come in and he is there. And he seems to be in a tremendously good mood. And he said, well, how's it going? He says, great. He says, I sold 3 already. Now you know why the artist is missing certain pictures. Do you remember, there was in one of the Jewish comedians' books, there was this picture of 3 people sitting around the table. There's a man and his wife and another woman. And the man says to his wife, all right, you're complaining we don't go on vacation. You keep complaining. We're going, okay? One condition. She said, what's that? He points to the other woman. He says, your mother is not going with us. He says, my mother? All these years I thought she was your mother. You knew about the lady, I have so many of these in France. The lady who falls into a deep and terrible coma. I'm going to pick on people now. If I see people not laughing, I'm going to come after you. And we've got a guard here who can help you. So, what was I saying? I've lost myself. I can't remember what it was. All right, never mind. This woman is arrested in Florida. She's arrested. The judge says, listen, you stole a can of peaches. She says, yes. Why? She said, no, I just felt like it. I just felt like it. He said, how many peaches were there in the can? She says, 4. He said, right, I'm sentencing you to 4 days imprisonment. Next case. But before he can go on, there's a man sitting there. He keeps jumping up and down. He says, Your Honor, Your Honor, Your Honor. He says, what do you want? He said, that's my wife. He said, yes. She also stole a can of peas. Yes. Yes, well, right. I told you this 1,000 times, I don't care. So I come to the United States in August 1969. That's why I speak this way, because I came in 1969. I used to speak this way, but I came to America, so I speak this way. So I've been here, this August, it'll be 55 years. And I went into a store to buy something. And the man behind the counter said to me, where are you from? I said, England. Where? I said, England. How long you been here? I said, 6 months. He said, just 6 months? You speak pretty good English. No, I told this for years. I told this one, about the 3 people you tell jokes to. If you tell a joke to a Frenchman, he laughs 3 times. Can't compete with you. You tell a joke to a Frenchman, he laughs 3 times. Because, once when he hears it, once when you explain it, and once when you understand it. Some people are telling the joke with me, which is good. I like it because it illustrates the joke. If you tell a joke that's a French. You tell a joke to an Englishman, he laughs twice. Once when you tell it, and once when you explain it. You'll never understand it. If you tell a joke to a German, he laughs once when you tell it. He can't understand it, and he'll never let you explain it. But if you tell a joke to a Jew, you don't get past the first line. First of all, I already heard it. Number 2, You're telling it wrong. And number three, I'll tell it to you the way you should have told it to me in the first place. Oh, you've got all these things. This is half true. This is half true. I won't tell you which half. In Milwaukee, this part is true. In Milwaukee, many years ago, I was asked to conduct services on Shavuos, which was 7 weeks after Pesach. Shavuos, you know, when you eat, what do we eat on Shavuos? Cheesecake and what else? Not matzah. Shavuos, yes, it's not a fast day, you eat. But anyway, no, that's irrelevant. What do you say? Linses. Do you want you to have cream cheese as well? That's part of it as well. Anyway, so I'm in this old age home. I know. Now I thought I'm in this old age home. Now I think old age home. Anyway, some of them were evidently very hard of hearing. I had to conduct services. It was an Orthodox place. So the men sat in the front, the women sat behind, and I stood in front with my back to them. And I had to sing with no microphone. To sing and to speak with no microphone. At the end of the service, the dear lady came up to me and said, "We couldn't hear a thing. We couldn't hear a word." I know no Jewish man or woman ever complains at a service, so you'll find this impossible to believe, but that's what happened. So the second day, the 2 days of Shavuos, the second day, I yelled, I screamed, my throat was aching, I was sweating, I was exhausted. And I caught sight of that lady, and I went over to her and I said to her, "Could you hear me?" She said to me, "What am I, deaf?" I then said to her, "Could you tell me, how did I do?" She said, "I hope you won't mind. I'll tell you the truth. The cantor yesterday was better." The first part is true. See, these things actually happen to you. You know, I mean, we have funny things that happen to us all the time. This one, no one laughs at. Let's see if we can do this. A Jewish man, I emphasize, calls his Jewish mother on the phone and says, "How are you?" Listen carefully. "How are you?" And she says, "I'm fine, thank you for calling." And he says, "I see you have company, I'll call later." Work it out. Yes, right. Yes. Fellow came up, Michael can confirm this. Michael, you can confirm this. That someone once called the shul, and Michael said, "Who is it?" And he said, "It's the IRS Fraud Division." And he said, "Do you have a Morris Goldstein?" I'm making up a name. He said, "Yes." "Did he give $100,000 to the shul?" And Michael said, "He will." It's true, isn't it?
Absolutely. I remember like it was yesterday.
Yeah. There's another one about Frenchmen and German and Jews. You know, the Frenchman says, "I'm tired, I'm thirsty, I must have wine." The German says, "I'm tired, I'm thirsty, I must have beer." The Jew says, "I'm tired, I'm thirsty, I must have diabetes." This is another truth. I've never told so much truth in one of these sessions. I'm getting frightened. Yeah. I came into the synagogue, and our place, of course, many years ago on a weekday evening when we had services, and there was one man there You know, whenever I want to say an elderly man, an old man, or something like that, I start feeling very a young and sprightly man. Anyway, an old man who, as you will hear, was always up and enthusiastic. I said to him, I just heard on the radio that someone has won $40 million in the lottery. And he said, there's always something. Well, this side is doing very well. There's a man whose son, he's not very bright. He can't, very difficult to find for him to, especially with Hebrew. It's not working. He hires a private tutor, a rabbi, a rebbe, you know, and it doesn't seem to be going very well. And one day the man comes home and he says, he hears the teacher teaching the son, Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei ravo, the memorial prayer that we say after someone dies. And he says to him, listen, Shiger, I'll go into Yiddish for a bit. Mr. Shiger, are you crazy? You will jetzt all sterben? Do you want me to die? He said, listen, you should live so long till he learns the Kaddish. Yes. You know, I've heard of these tailor jokes. I know you've heard them, but I love them. I have to tell them. This man, goes to the tailor to pick up his suit. And he puts it on, and the tailor takes one look and he says, perfect. Are you crazy? He said, look here, the shoulders. It hangs. It's hangs. He said, excuse me, sir. Please don't get it. If you'll just stand like this. Then he says, but what about this arm? This arm, the sleeve is too short. Excuse me, if you just go like this. Then he says, I've got to go over here for a second, I'll come back. He says, here, I think, can they still hear me there? Here, look here. He says, the pants, the jacket, everything, just. So he leaves the store and he's walking like this. And as he's walking like this, two doctors pass by, walking by. A doctor's walking this. One of them looks at the other, says, oh, you never. He says, a cripple. The other one says, yes, but doesn't the suit fit nice? These are classics. These are classics. You know about, you know, in the Talmud somewhere, it says, not exactly this, but something close to this. It says that the sin of adultery and the sin of eating chametz on Pesach, that they're the same thing. The sin, one sin is just like the other. And I have a friend who told me, he said, I've tried them both, and I don't see the comparison. I have to be careful. I've got certain things which might offend certain people. I told this one yesterday in shul, and I'm going to repeat it. I don't care. They come, the JUF comes to a man, and they say, we would really like you to make a donation. And he says, look, don't bother me. He says, I'm not Jewish. My father wasn't Jewish, and my grandfather, Oliver Sholem, wasn't Jewish either. Now, having dealt with Judaism, I'll talk about a priest. The priest is new, he's just arrived in the parish, and he goes to the bishop and he says, I have a problem. Someone, I think I know who it is, but I can't accuse him, someone has stolen my bicycle. What should I do? I can't tell him. He said, I'll tell you what you do. This always works. Next Sunday, when you preach, talk about the 10 Commandments. Talk about the 10 Commandments. And when you come to, thou shalt not steal, pause, say it slowly, say it clearly, and look around. You'll get your bike back. A few days later, the bishop sees the priest riding his bike and said, I see my plan worked. He said, yes, but not in quite the way you intended. He said, what do you mean? He said, well, when I came to thou shalt not commit adultery, I remembered where I'd left it. There's a Jewish man and his two Jewish men walking along, and they pass by a church. And there's a sign there, $1,000 if you convert to Christianity. And one of them says, I will use an English word now, see if you know this. I'm really skint. You know what skint means? That's broke. Skint is an English word for broke. Because this happened in England, of course. So I've got to do this. He goes in, comes out, half an hour later, he said, did you do it? He said, yes. He said, how do you feel? Same. He said, did you get the money? He says, that's all you people think about. Yes. Since we're on this subject, there's a man, a seminary student, a Christian seminary student, who's always wanted to meet the Pope. So he goes to Rome, and he's watching what's happening there, and he sees, because the Pope would come out at a certain point, he sees the bunch of people sitting there, and to his amazement, one of the people sitting there is a Hasidic Jew. He's got long beard, he's got payas, he's got a long black coat, and a big hat. And when the Pope comes out, he goes straight up to, they all stand up, and the Pope goes straight up to this man and starts talking to him. And he says, now I know how to meet the Pope. So he runs into town and he finds a store that sells all kinds of clothes, for disguises. And he buys a long black coat, a fake beard, and longer payas. By the way, do you know the Polish word for payas? Pesa, P-E-J-S-E. They got it from Yiddish, which gets it from Hebrew. Pesa of things. That's the whole point of telling you the story. No, anyway. So he buys all these things, and the next day he sits in one of these seats. Now he's going to meet the Pope. Anyway, the Pope comes out, they all stand up, and sure enough, the Pope comes right up to him. And he says to him, I thought I told you yesterday to get the hell out of here. What happened? Are people embarrassed about this? I disagree with you. I think it's the most wonderful joke. I told this joke in the Smoky Library a number of years back, and afterwards I got a complaint. Someone told me that that someone came up to him, he was a librarian, and said, as a Jew, I was offended at this joke. And I said, you can't imagine how heartbroken I am. In the days when one of the Bushes, I forget which one, was president of the United States, he met with Margaret Thatcher, and he said, how is it that your cabinet, your ministers, your administration, they're so bright? She said, well, I give them a test. He said, well, what kind of question? She said, well, I'll take one question. I say, who is it? It's your father's son. Like I say to John Major, for example, who's one of the ministers. Who is it? It's your father's son, but he's not your brother. And John Major said, it's me. He said, that's amazing, that's wonderful, I have to do that. I was Bush Senior because his vice president was one of the greatest and brightest and most remarkable people in public life in the United States, Dan Quayle. So he tells Dan Quayle, listen, you'll lose your post if you can't answer this question because people are saying you're not that bright. I mean, I can't tell, but we'll go and find out. And he says, Okay. He says to Daniel, listen, who is it? He's your father's son, but he's not your brother. And Quayle says, Mr. President, I have to go to the bathroom. Goes to the bathroom, he pulls out a cell phone, a smartphone, which is interesting because they weren't invented till 25 years later. But in some ways, he was ahead of the time. And he calls up Henry Kissinger. And he says, Henry, yes. He says, I have a very important question to ask you. What is it, Dan? He says, who is it? He's your father's son. He's not your brother. He says, Dan, it's me. So he goes back to George Bush. He said, I have the answer. He said, okay, tell me. Who is it? It's your father's son. He's not your brother. He said, it's Henry Kissinger. And he says, and Bush said to him, no, you idiot, it's John Major. Yes. So you never know. And we think things are bad now.
Yeah.
They are. You're absolutely right.
Not right.
Not right. Well, we'll see. We'll see, yes. So I've got millions of pages of stuff. See, I never know what I'm going to say. Yes. Okay, here we are. I always do this. This is about ads. You know, at one time, of course, people used to meet at dances and so on, and people would put ads in the papers for shidduchim to meet their intended or their unintended. So here are some of the ads that have appeared. Jewish businessman, 49 years of age, manufactures Shabbos candles, Hanukkah candles, Havdalah candles, Yahrzeit candles. Seeks non-smoker. This ain't going well. You know what a potato latke is?
Yeah.
Couch potato latke. Look that up. In search of ripe applesauce. Let's try it for 8 days. Who knows? Female graduate student studying Kabbalah, Zohar, exorcism of Divox, seeks mensch. No weirdos, please. Divorced Jewish man seeks partner to attend shul with light Shabbos candles, celebrate Yom Tov, build sukkah together, attend brisses bar mitzvahs. Religion not important. Yeshiva bocher, Torah scholar, long beard, pious, seeks same in woman. Matzah supplier 53 seeks cloth bag manufacturer. Let's play hide the afikoman. Never mind. Don't get upset. Shul Gabbai 36. I take out the Torah on Saturday morning. Would like to take you out Saturday night. That's a nice. That's a very, very sweet one. Yes. I don't know. A Jewish mother's answering machine. It's very old. If you want varnishkas, dial 1. Chicken soup, dial 2. Matzo balls with soup, dial 4. I don't know, I must have missed out 3. If you want to know how I'm feeling, you're calling the wrong number. Nobody ever asks me how I'm feeling. Yes. You know, in Florida, I become much more sensitive. I got 2 worries. One is, will it offend someone? I hope so. But the other is, have I told you before? And the answer is always yes. A woman falls into a coma. I didn't get to say this before. Falls into a terrible coma. Months and months and months and months. And her daughter just sits by her, crying, worrying. Will she ever recover? And after 6 months, a miracle happens. She opens her eyes. She opens her eyes. She smiles, but then she looks around in horror and she says to her daughter, you have to help me. I forgot. Some of these jokes are very close to the knuckle here, close to the bone, I should say. The 2 women playing bridge. And one says to the other, listen, we've been playing 30 years. 30 years we've been playing. and I'm embarrassed. I've forgotten your name. What is it? She says, how soon do you need to know? Very sad. Work it out. It's a. How are we going here? Oh, okay. Can I speak to your dad? Yes, this little boy answers the phone. Hello? Yes, can I speak to your dad? No, he's busy. Your mum? Oh, she's busy. Is there anyone else there? Police. Can I speak to them? No, they're busy too. What are they doing? Looking for me. Do you know, after the war, there was a survey in Boston about Yiddish. They wanted to know how many people knew Yiddish. And it got a very interesting result, because I forget how many it was, the exact numbers. It was something like this. Because they asked who speaks Yiddish and who understands Yiddish. So 10,000 people said they understand Yiddish, but 15,000 people said they speak Yiddish. So this, I mean, that means that 5,000 people have actually admitted that they don't know what they're talking about. How can you speak a language you don't understand? I'm just explaining the joke for those people. You know about the woman, I'm reaching deep down into the sack now. You know the woman at the dentist, and she's there for a clean, and he looks and he says, you're going to have 4 teeth removed. And she says, I'd rather have a baby. He says, make up your mind, I'll have to adjust the chair. Like, you see, this is it's difficult. Well, listen, I mean, should I go on? I've been going for a while. Yes? Okay, it's all right?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Mister, this guy comes up to me, Mister, can you give me a couple of dollars for a cup of coffee? And I said, no, wait a minute. I said, I just gave you half an hour ago. I gave you a couple of dollars. I said, Mister, stop living in the past. The Schnorrer, who was a philosopher. I'll tell you something really true. I've told this to you before. When I became rabbi at the synagogue, Rabbi Musman was the rabbi, I was the cantor, and then I took over with both, except on our holidays when the cantor comes in. But a man showed up at evening service. He was the Schnorrer par excellence. You know that wonderful book, King of Schnorrers, by Israel Zangwill. You should read it if you haven't read it. It's a marvelous book. And he was a tall man, and he had style, and he had personality. He came in and he said to me, after the service, he said, your predecessor, as Rabbi Hashman, was always very, very generous. I went into the office, and I didn't know where the cash was. I pulled a few dollars out of my wallet, put it in an envelope, sealed the envelope, I sealed it, I gave it to him. He took it and he said to me, without opening, he said, your predecessor used to give me more. I thought, you're not laughing. I thought it was hilarious. He didn't look at it. And then I said to him, well, there used to be 2 of us, now there's only 1 of us. You see, we're not in as good a position. And then he called me that night. He said, I need you to do something for me. He didn't ask you a favor. I need you to do something for me. I said, if I can. He said, I need the private phone numbers of all the rabbis in the area. I said, forget it. He said, by the way, the amount you gave me can only be considered symbolic. I said to him, listen, symbolism is all we're up to. So that is literally a true story. I mean, there's not a single word that is untrue. Now let's get back from the boring true stuff. Yes. This man says, how's your daughter? She says, she's getting married. Oh, who's she marrying? The chief surgical resident at the University of Chicago. I said, wasn't he a professor? She said, no, that was her previous husband. Wasn't there a law professor at Yale? So yeah, that was the husband before that. I said, well, why do I seem to remember a psychiatrist? He said, well, that was Saul, her first husband, a very prominent analyst. So much nachas for one daughter. Nachas, for those who don't know, is joy, especially. There's something sort of similar about this man who's walking around. He looks behind. There's a woman there, but she was there 10 minutes before, behind him. So he starts walking, he starts testing it. He turns right, she turns right, turns left, she turns left. He stops, she stops. He says to her, turns around, he says to her, are you following me? She says, look, I want to tell you something. He said, what? She said, you remind me of one of my husbands. He said, what? How many husbands have you had? She says, 3. He says, which one do I remind you of? She says, my 4th. There's a concert in Israel, but you know, what's the name? Bono, right? Bono?
Wow.
Bono, am I saying it right? I don't know how to pronounce these words. 4 letters. 2 vowels, 1 vowel, 2 vowels, 2 vowels. Bono. He asked the audience for some quiet. And then he slowly starts to clap his hands. He says, do you know, every time I clap my hands, a child in Africa dies, and someone pulls out and says, no, so stop clapping. There's a man, he's a very, very Orthodox man, very Orthodox Jewish man. He's 35, very sad. He's not married. They're very worried. He's very worried. His parents are going out of their minds. They hire the best shadchan, the best marriage broker, the best. He says, it's very difficult. You want someone the right age? Can she be divorced? No. Can she have children? No. It's schwer. It's sehr schwer. You know, shadchan talks. This is very difficult. I'll see what I can, but it's person. Okay, don't worry, that's just me. This is just to remind me to carry on. So he says, I'll see how I can do. Next week he comes back. There's a different man. He says, Nes min hashamayim. He says, a miracle. I wouldn't, in 100 years, I wouldn't have believed it. That's it. I wouldn't believe it. I found someone. She's the right age. She's never been married. She's beautiful. She's a cook. A chef. A cordon bleu. Beautiful. And she's frum. She goes to shul. She keeps Shabbos. She lights candles. She keeps kosher. Parents say, wonderful. Love again. Let's go. And the son says, just a minute. What was his? Now, I've got to be very careful what I say. I'm not using certain words. He says, is she good? I'm not saying anything else. Is she good? And the shadchan says, some say yes, some say no. I only tell this joke in shul. All right. I think we'll finish. Unless there are questions. Are there any questions? Maybe a disagreement? Maybe I told it wrong. Maybe I told it different last time. Last time you said this.
Rabbi?
Yeah, there's a question. Paulette, why am I not surprised? Paulette has a question. Yes, Paulette.
Yeah,
Yes.
I thought you were going to say that the guy said, what does she look like?
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Well, I'll do it next time. Okay, so, yes, David.
I got one, I think I should tell that one.
No, I think you should wait. We'll do it in private later. Yes. Well, this Jewish man dies. and he is, God, there's another one here. All right, I'll tell you.
Don't let us twist your arm.
Yes. Hat sich nicht lang gelassen, yeah. Lässt sich nicht lang beten. You know that expression? Lässt sich nicht lang beten. It's like in Yiddish. Lässt sich nicht lang beten. You don't have to beg him. You don't have to beg him for a long time. Like in English, you don't have to ask him twice. And that's a very nice expression. Lässt sich nicht lang beten. Anyway, what was the world's woman? No, I've forgotten. Yeah. So anyway, this woman's husband dies. And they're carrying the casket. It's two elderly gentlemen carrying the casket, and there's a loose stone, and he trips and drops the front of the casket, and they hear knocking from inside. And they open the casket. She's not dead. She's fallen into a coma, and the doctor mistakenly wrote a death certificate. I mean, he's not dead. By him, I turned it around. He's not there. Anyway, he comes back. They live together, and 5 years later, he does die, and they're walking on the same place, and the wife says to them, "Careful now, boys. Last time happened here a nasty accident." Now, so this man dies. Not death. This man dies, and he's shown heaven and hell. Heaven, Gan Eden. Hell, Gehenna. First, he's shown hell. You can't believe it. A massive party going on. Me esst, say in Yiddish, me esst, me drink, me tanzt, me hulje. They're eating, they're drinking, they're dancing, they're frolicking. There's a bar, not a cash bar, a free bar, people drinking. There's food, there's kosher food. Think of that. Think of the theological implications of kosher food in hell. Now, I've had some kosher food and I thought I was in hell, but this is the real thing. And there's even a band. There's even a band. Another theological puzzle. There's a live band in hell. A live band. It's not a disc jockey, it's a live band. And everyone's having a wonderful time. And then he goes up, he's shown heaven. No one there. Looks around. Finally, way over in the corner, he sees 3 old Jews studying. They have a Gemara there and they're studying. And he says to God, the Bunchburn, I'll say it in Yiddish and then in English. Yiddish is for you, and for a few others. Yeah. He says, "Ich verstehe nicht," which means I don't understand. He said, "Dorten, there, in Gehenna, in hell, the esst, the drink, the tanz, mahulya," says, "I feel to a band. They're eating, drinking, dancing, frolicking. There's even a band. In Garden, in Gan Eden, and in heaven, sitzen 3 alte Jiden in Gurnish. They're 3 old Jews, and that's all." And God says to him, "For 3 old Jews, I should take a band. For 3 old Jews, I should hire a band." Anyway, we didn't need a band today, but I want to thank Linda, Esther, Lorraine, Jennifer, and Marga, of course, Marga. I want to thank them. Will you applaud their food? And I want to thank you for coming. And remember, as Solomon said, Lachen is gesinnt, doch teuren heißen Lachen. Laughter is healthy. Doctors prescribe laughter, or they should. Anyway, so have a good day. Is everything